Well, Star Wars fans, the day is almost here. Just a few short days. The Force Awakens, Star Wars Episode 7, the sequel to the original classic trilogy, is coming out later this week. And I have my ticket for opening night, and it's going to be very exciting, and hopefully the film turns out well. But what I wanted to do with this video, not only to talk about The Force Awakens and what I want and what I expect out of the film, but talk about Star Wars in general, what it's meant to me. Because it's been a very big part of my life, and I'm sure it's been a very big part of the life of many people who grew up with it. I find that most people were introduced to Star Wars when they were really young, and it's one of those things that just catches you early, and you kind of get sucked into it, and it's one of those things that just... it leaves an impact, regardless of whether or not you're a crazy person that has the posters up on the wall and have a t-shirt and even a TIE Fighter hoodie, among other crazy things. You know, you may not be as dedicated as other people like myself are, but it's certain to leave an impact, because it's such a unique... I mean, especially those original 3 movies, it's such a unique experience, and one that just... it stays with you for the rest of your life, and it had such a big impact on me that I honestly can't remember a point in my life where I didn't know what Star Wars was. I can think as far back as I possibly can, and I don't remember a point in my life where I didn't know what Star Wars was. And so much so that I don't remember ever seeing it for the first time. I've always known. I've always known about the movies, the characters, the story, how it all plays out, all the big action sequences. I've always known. It's Star Wars. It was that ingrained into me that I don't remember a point in my life where Star Wars wasn't in it. And you know, it was also a big thing that bonded my family together. With all the different members of my family, we all had different tastes in movies. But again, Star Wars, the universal appeal of these movies, it was one of the movies that we all could agree on. It was like, yeah, that movie's pretty awesome now, isn't it? All 3 of them. And sure enough, like when I was in my youth, if I would watch one, I'd have to watch all 3 of them. It was just one of those things. I couldn't just sit down and watch one. It just, all right, I'm watching Star Wars, so I got to sit down and watch all 3 of them. So that's how that works. But I bought tons of merchandise. Actually, I've already showed this off in a previous video. This is probably my favorite piece of Star Wars merchandise that I own. It's my Lego Death Star. Thing's pretty big. Took about I want to say 3 hour sessions to put the whole thing together. And I have more Star Wars merchandise in my youth that I no longer have, and I wish I still did. But I've given George Lucas a lot of money over the years, let's just say that. But, I do remember trick-or-treating, and I didn't go as a Star Wars character every year, but the 2 big ones I remember, I went as Darth Vader one year, because that's what you do. And the last time I ever went trick-or-treating, I went as Boba Fett. It was a costume that I made mostly myself. The only thing that was store-bought was the only thing about the costume that was official, like Star Wars merchandise, was the helmet. Everything else I made myself. I'm sure it looked like dog crap. I wish I had a picture of it so I could show it to you, but I'm sure it looked bad, but at the same time, it was kind of cool that I made my own Boba Fett costume, and it was the last time I ever went trick-or-treating, so I was 13. No, I'm just kidding. I was 17. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually 11. I got out of trick-or-treating pretty quick. I actually found, and this is a weird sidebar, but I actually found I actually enjoyed giving the candy out more than actually going out and getting my own candy. It was really strange. I actually like seeing the kids come to the door with their costumes as opposed to me going out and getting my own candy, because I think I was getting to that age where I just bought my own candy, so I was like, screw it. Why go to all the effort of dressing up and doing all that crap? But anyway, I'll actually do that in a Halloween video, tell those stories. But in any case, so Star Wars, like I said, it's a movie that just has a wonderful universal appeal, and the impact that this original trilogy had. I think it was so universally loved and such a big hit right off the bat, because it was so easy to understand and engage yourself into, because it borrows so much from ancient myths and religion and folklore and literature and old westerns and Kurosawa films and Flash Gordon serials, and I mean, it's one of the few movies that I can think of that successfully blends a little bit of everything. It has action adventure. It has swashbuckling daredevil antics. It has big special effects. Starship battles. It has science fiction. It has fantasy. It has comedy. It has romance. It has sword fights. It has gunplay. It has a little bit of everything, and all of it's woven together in this wonderfully creative universe and great dramatic story told over the course of 3 films. And it turned out that Star Wars was bigger than just 3 movies, because it obviously broke off into the expanded universe and through books and comic books and video games and all sorts of other things. Then we got the prequel trilogy, which, okay, there were animated series, and now we're getting this new sequel trilogy with other spin-off movies coming out. We got Rogue One coming out next year, which that's going to be interesting. But Star Wars is just it's been a pop culture phenomenon ever since it came out, and I can't overstate enough just how huge it is. So much so that I feel like I could talk about it for hours, but at the same time, I don't know if I could add anything else that people haven't already talked about. But I'm going to do the best I can in any case. And we're going to start off, obviously, with where Star Wars began, the original trilogy. And the original Star Wars trilogy, for me, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's definitely up there. I mean, there are other movies I love. There's Rocky is my number 1 favorite. Die Hard is up there. Terminator 2 is up there. Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Godzilla, the original Gojira, that one's up there. Lord of the Rings. Actually, Groundhog Day is one of my favorite movies, believe it or not. That's that one that I really like. But there's a lot of movies that I love, but Star Wars is always going to rank near the top. Probably number 2 behind Rocky. Rocky's my number 1, but it's that original trilogy. It's about as close to perfect as you could possibly imagine. No film is truly perfect, and Star Wars is no exception, but as far as like a flowing narrative through the course of 3 movies, I feel like that trilogy is about as good as it could ever get. And a lot of that has to do with the world that was created, which was this wonderful. And really, one of the major aspects that people talked about with Star Wars when it first came out, the lived-in, organic look that the world had. It didn't look like a bright and shiny future like you would see in other science fiction stories. It looked very kind of grungy. The starships were kind of very industrial and broken down. The Millennium Falcon looked like a piece of shit. I mean, Luke even said it looks like a piece of junk, and stuff wouldn't work, and it looked very lived in and real, and that gave it a sense of authenticity that, again, a lot of other science fiction space travel stories didn't quite have, and it just felt more believable, even if like all this crazy stuff was going on, and maybe the science fiction itself didn't have the same level of detail that, say, Star Trek did, at least in explaining how all the crazy weaponry and starships worked and everything. It felt believable because it just, the way the characters inhabited the world and the way everything just looked very organic and very real, and that just made it so engaging and believable right off the bat. But you also had great characters that were largely archetypes from classic myths and folklore and stories and fairy tales, and and I think that's why, again, like I said, that's why Star Wars has such a universal appeal, because all the stories and all the characters and all the archetypes are very recognizable, because they're part of legends that have been passed down for generations and centuries. And Star Wars just took those concepts and just presented it in a way that made it new all over again. And, everyone... I think a lot of us kind of view ourselves as Luke Skywalker, the farm boy that was destined, or they got pulled into a bigger adventure. We all want to be Luke Skywalker to some degree, just start off small and then turn into the mightiest warrior in the galaxy, and learn lessons and learn morality along the way. Han Solo is the thief with a heart of gold and just instantly charismatic, so likable, even though he's a bit of a scoundrel. Chewbacca, his loyal sidekick, and he's basically a dog sidekick, but presented in such a unique way with the growls and the personality that came out through the performance and various other things. Everybody loves Chewbacca, and he wasn't even really one of the major characters in the original movie, but everyone fell in love with him. You have C-3PO and R2-D2, who are kind of the comic relief. Comedy duo, the cute little robots that inhabit the world. And again, very iconic, very memorable. And it's amazing to me, it was always amazing to me that you always got a sense of R2-D2's personality, even though he never communicated through actual dialogue that we could understand. It was just a trash can on wheels that made beeps, and you got a sense of his personality just based on how people, or the other characters, namely C-3PO, how they interacted with him. And you got a sense of, yeah, he's a sassy little robot. That's kind of cool. But there's also Princess Leia, who is one of the first, if not the first, female characters that I really latched onto. Not in a I have a crush on her type of way, although I did. But in a, yeah, Leia's pretty cool. She's pretty badass, and she shoots a gun right along with the other guys, and she's a strong leader and very authoritarian and commands a lot of respect. And I was like, yeah, Leia's awesome. I love her. And the romantic element between her and Han. I don't know why. I'm not a lovey-dovey type of guy, but that romance just kind of hits me right here. I don't know what it is. It's my Star Wars bias coming out. And actually, when I saw the trailer for Force Awakens, when you see Leia and Han hugging, which I'm assuming is coming from a scene where they reunite or they say goodbye to each other. I'm not entirely sure, but just that one quick little shot made me go, oh, it's... and I don't get that way over romantic crap, but I don't know why. Han and Leia, they're my couple. It's really weird. Padme and Anakin in the prequels did not measure up to that, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But you also had Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was the wise old wizard, like the Merlin character, who was helping King Arthur or Luke Skywalker on his journey to learn and grow and become a better person, become a better leader, and all sorts of other things. You had Yoda, who, quite honestly, if I had to pick a favorite character in all of Star Wars, I would say original trilogy Yoda. And I have to make that distinction again when I get to the prequels, but original trilogy Yoda is my favorite Star Wars character ever. And I think a lot of it is from the fact that I love puppets. I love Jim Henson's work. So an idea of a main character being a puppet in a Star Wars movie was instantly appealing to me. And that's another thing that was great about Star Wars was the great use of practical effects. I mean, the models on the spaceships, the way they move, the way all the action scenes play out, and all the creatures that inhabit the world and the puppets and the guys in suits, they all look great. I mean, they all look fantastic. The Rancor looks amazing. I mean, that was one of my favorite creatures that they put together. You go into Cantina or Jabba's palace and you see all those great creatures. Jabba the Hutt, another incredible one. But Yoda's my number one because, through Frank Oz's performance and the way Mark Hamill plays off of the puppet, you really do believe that Yoda's there. At least I do. I look at that as like, it's not a puppet. Yoda's real. Yoda's real. And I just fell in love with him. And he was just so interesting that it was really interesting that this little guy turned out to be the most powerful Force yielder on the good side. And that was always fascinating to me. And it gave me various ideas of how the Force works. Of course, the prequels took that and threw it down the shit can. But again, I'll get there when I get there. I just fell in love with Yoda, and he was always my favorite character. And that speech he gives, where he explains the Force and how it works and what it is, one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. And if I'm watching Empire Strikes Back and I'm watching that scene and it catches me at the right moment, it might bring a little tear to my eye. It's just I don't know what it is. Again, it's the believability of the performance is one thing, but I think it's like, wow, the Force is really this really like wondrous magical thing, and the Force is very vague in how they talk about it and how they explain it. It's a belief and faith has a lot to do with it, but there's also like nature's a big element to it, and it's really, you can interpret the Force as almost anything you could possibly want because it is such So I don't know, like such a vague concept, but one that's also grand and magical too. So you could probably ask 5 or 6 different people what they think the Force is, and you'd probably get 5 or 6 different answers. It's again, up until the prequels, which fucking hell. I'll get there. But yeah, just Yoda. To me, Yoda was just always like the living representation of the Force, and I love that character so much. I'm gonna like guffawn all over him. But we can't do that for the entire video, so I'll just move on. But and other characters like Darth Vader, who has become like the cinematic icon of evil. I mean, it's him and Hannibal Lecter, who are like, when you think of evil in cinema, you think of Darth Vader and Hannibal Lecter. Those are the 2 images that you think of. And everything from the James Earl Jones voice to the breathing sound effects to the way he looks to the way he acts. I mean, he is so casually menacing in Empire Strikes Back, especially, where he'll just choke a bitch out for doing him wrong, or or screwing up, or just the council meeting in the original movie where he just uses his Force powers to choke a guy and just does it because whatever, I'm doing what I want. And he was so just dismissive of other people around him. It was just a wonderfully evil character that played a much bigger role in the series than we could have ever imagined. In fact, as it turns out, the series is really at least through the first through episodes 1 through 6, the series is really about him and his family. But spoiler alert, I should say. But yeah, Darth Vader, one of the all-time great cinematic villains, and the wonderful thing about Star Wars is that even the side characters are memorable, whether it be because of their look. Like Boba Fett somehow got this reputation for being the most dangerous bounty hunter in the galaxy, and he did almost nothing. I mean, if you go watch him in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, the guy did almost nothing, yet somehow the fans have built him up as having this reputation for being the most dangerous, feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, and the expanded universe material was written to reflect that, and it's all because this guy stood in the corner and looked badass. And that's really all he did, but he was like, man, that guy looks interesting. Lando Calrissian, not one of the bigger roles, but he's one of the most memorable because he has a redemption story arc. And I've already mentioned all the characters in the cantina that people remember, even though they may not have had any dialogue. The creatures in Jabba's palace. Jabba the Hutt himself, who is a great design, great character. There's this evil gangster that's all corpulent and fat and can't move and just sits around eating all day and banishing people to be killed. It's just a wonderful character. Loved him. It really speaks a lot to the strength of Star Wars when even like the side characters become memorable and have stories written about them and have fans that have merchandise or love and admiration for like these really background characters. And Star Wars is just loaded with all types of stuff like that. Everything about Star Wars is just so iconic. John Williams' music is, for my money, one of the all-time great motion picture soundtracks. John Williams' Star Wars music. It just gave it this larger-than-life operatic feel to the entire series that I don't know if the movie would have worked as well if the music wasn't as good as it is. I mean, I can't picture Star Wars without John Williams' music. It's so the two go hand in hand together. And I already talked about the spaceships and stuff, but you look at things like the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter and the Star Destroyer and those great designs, and the Millennium Falcon, which is probably the most iconic spaceship in all of movie science fiction. Just everything was just, every meticulous detail was just so well designed, well crafted, and I know there was a lot of like turmoil on the set of the first movie, so it's really amazing that everything kind of worked out as well as it did. But it just all came out perfectly, and there's just so many great moments and so many great payoffs and great action sequences and character moments and dramatic moments that I could sit here and talk about all day. The opening sequence, I mean, this is a series that really does start off with a bang, with one of the all-time great opening sequences with the Star Destroyer chasing the rebel ship and then flying overhead in just this massive starship that I'm sure must have wowed audiences back in 1977. I would have loved to have been in that original audience, but Yeah, it's you have that opening sequence. You have the cantina scene, which I talked about. You have the Death Star trench run, which for my money is still the best aerial dogfight ever put to film. Again, because it's all models and it's not CGI, I just like it better. And it was more amazing to me that they were able to get the models to move like that and fly like that, and it just looks great. In addition to servicing the story, I mean, that moment when the Millennium Falcon comes in and saves Luke so he can blow up the Death Star, it makes me go, fuck yeah, every time I watch it. And then there's the Battle of Hoth and Empire and the asteroid chase scene and with the big, I guess, worm thing that comes out and almost eats the Falcon and Luke versus Vader, which I still think is the greatest lightsaber fight they ever put to film because it didn't just look great from the staging and the set and the way it was shot and everything, but it served the story perfectly. It had been built up over the course of 2 movies, and it had legitimate drama and tension. Whereas, say, the prequels, I've already shit on the prequels so much, but everybody says the episode 1 fight is great. I'm like, no, the episode 1 fight is very well choreographed. It's just a shame I don't give a shit about any of the characters involved. That's a problem. But, so Luke, Vader, and Empire I still think is the all-time best lightsaber duel that they ever did. And obviously with one of the all-time great movie twists just to be the icing on the cake. And actually, right before that, another one of my favorite moments in the trilogy was right before the big reveal, where Vader is using the Force to just make objects fly off the wall and hit Luke, and Luke gets sucked out the window. There's this moment where Vader just puts his lightsaber down, and he's just standing there while objects just keep flying and hitting Luke. And Vader just looks so powerful and so casual in how cruel he was to Luke. That is man, that's just awesome. And the music, of course, John Williams' music just perfectly accompanied it. And a lot of people say Empire's the best film. I typically agree. It introduced my favorite character. It was the darkest one. It ended on the big cliffhanger. It developed all the characters, raised the stakes, and did everything that a good sequel is supposed to do. Return of the Jedi, also very good. To me, all 3 films are A+. Return of the Jedi might be a little bit more scatterbrained, in having a little, maybe a little too much going on, and some people hate the Ewoks. I actually don't hate the Ewoks. I think they fit within the story that was being told, and they fit within the themes of Star Wars, kind of the nature versus technology aspect. So, yeah, they're cutesy, but that just made them more like underdogs to me. And I don't know. I was never bothered by the Ewoks until the animated show and the 2 Ewok movies, but well, whatever. But in Return of the Jedi, that didn't bother me. And, again, Return of the Jedi, that whole Jabba sequence was great. Even though, Luke's plan to save everybody was overly complicated, the whole sequence was great. Now, the sail barge scene in particular, I think is one of the great, I don't know, when I think of swashbuckling action, I think of that scene. And, you have the Rancor scene, which was great. And then the story moves to Endor. You have the speeder bike chase, which looks a little dated now, but it's one of the few special effects shots from the original trilogy that hasn't aged as well, but still a very exciting, fast-paced scene. And then you get the Battle of Endor, which split everything up, and you get the space battle and the forest battle with the shield generator, which was, again, very well done. And you get the big climax, the emotional climax of the whole story, the whole scene in the Emperor's throne room, which, when people say that Return of the Jedi is the weakest of the 3, I often point to the stuff in the Emperor's throne room and the whole Vader, Emperor. By the way, the Emperor is another one of my favorite characters. As much as I love Yoda for being the ultimate representative of the light side of the Force, I love the Emperor for being so deliciously evil, that he's both creepy and hysterical all at the same time. It's this wonderful performance that I can't quite put my finger on. It's I don't know why it works. It should be a laugh riot, but it's not, and I kind of take him seriously, even though I know he's a little silly. It's this really, I don't know how to explain it properly, but the Emperor's great, and the whole story arc with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor is fantastic, and really, to me, makes Return of the Jedi, an A+ film, and a worthy conclusion to the series. I love all 3 of these movies. I haven't said that enough. I definitely love all 3 of the original Star Wars movies. And like I said, I typically watch them all together because, they all kind of fit together, and it's really fun to watch them all together and relive all those memories, all in quick succession and stuff. And and even the special editions, which I wish that we'd get an official Blu-ray release of the original trilogy. I know you can go online and get the despecialized edition and download that through BitTorrents, which I do not endorse. Wink, wink. I would like to get an official release of the original trilogy, and the special edition made some changes that were dumb, that annoy me. Namely, the scene with Greedo and Han, which I don't know why he changed that. It makes no sense, and the shot looks stupid, among other things. But I would love to get the original released on Blu-ray, and I would love to own that. But the special edition, what I will give it credit for is that it did get Star Wars into theaters again in the late '90s, and because of that, I was able to see Star Wars on the big screen. And one of my favorite memories of being in a movie theater was, at the end of the first movie, at the end of A New Hope, the audience erupted with applause when the Death Star blew up. And it was just one of those great movie-going experiences that I'll always cherish. And it was like, yeah, okay, special edition, they made some changes that were lame. They made some changes that I liked. I don't know. I like the scene with Biggs that they added into A New Hope right before the big star battle. I don't know. I just thought that was a nice little moment. It, not necessary. If you don't see it, you don't miss it. But it was one of those. Oh, that was a nice little thing that they added. We can sit here and nitpick the changes they made, and Lord knows I've done that myself. But it did get. It was the thing that got me to see Star Wars in the theater, so I can't be completely mad at it. But Disney, I don't care what you have to do or who you have to bribe or whatever. Can we please get the originals released on Blu-ray? Please and thank you in advance. Again, I could sit here and ramble all day long about how much I just love the Star Wars trilogy, the real trilogy, the old trilogy that I grew up with, and made me a fan and made me want to explore Star Wars in other ways and read books and read the comics and play the video games and do all those other things. It really started with those three movies, and they provided me with so many fond memories that I'll cherish them always, regardless of if they never make another good Star Wars movie. Nothing will ever diminish my love for the original three movies. They are absolute classics in every sense of the word. And this right here is actually my DVD copy of the original trilogy. This is the 2004 release. I never bothered buying the Blu-rays because I heard about some of the changes they made, and I was just like, that officially pushed me beyond my limit. I swallowed my pride and got the Hayden Christensen Return of the Jedi thing, but when I heard that they added Vader yelling no at the end of Return of the Jedi, I was like, nope. So the next time I buy Star Wars or a copy of it, it will be like, no, it's going to be the original set. I refuse to settle for any less than that at this point. But, but again, there's also the despecialized edition, which I do not endorse downloading through BitTorrents. I don't endorse it at all. Wink, wink. From there, let's go into the prequels. Which, as much bashing as I'm about to do on these films, I do own them on DVD, because I'm a completist. At least when it comes to the major movies. I do not own the Ewok movies. I want to make that distinction. But I also don't own the Clone Wars movie because it's really bad. But, and technically it's animated, so I don't have to count it as one of the live-action films. But, the prequels. Man, when I tell people not to get too excited over Episode 7... I asked them to think back to 1999 and remember the hype surrounding Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and how big that movie was, and how disappointed everybody was by that film, and by the prequel trilogy in general. It was not very good, so, things could easily go wrong with Episode 7. I hope it doesn't. I hope it turns out fine, but I'm trying not to let myself get too hyped for Episode 7 because I remember how the prequels turned out, and... especially that first one, they were just really, really sterile, just weak sauce films. I'm not saying they're the worst movies ever made, but the acting's really bad. The over-reliance on CGI gave it more of a sterile, kind of synthetic, cartoony look, as opposed to the original trilogy, which looks very organic and very real and very handcrafted and warm and inviting. This world just looks like one big computer-generated image being performed by puppets. Like they got like mannequins to stand in and wear costumes in front of CGI backgrounds, and that's kind of what it feels like watching these movies. And it's really a shame because you would hope that the prequels to Star Wars would make for a really good trilogy, but it didn't, unfortunately. It gave us one of the most reviled characters in the history of cinema in Jar Jar Binks, although I will say that the Darth Jar Jar theory that was floating around the internet, it's been floating around for about a month now, is really hysterical, and it makes me wish that it actually happened. I don't think they're going to revisit. I know some people said that, he's the big villain in the new sequel trilogy. I highly doubt they're going to go in that direction, but in any case, it was kind of funny. And actually the theory does kind of sort of hold up, but I think if that was originally the plan, George Lucas would have stuck to his guns and let it play out that way, because it would have been more interesting. But in any case, what else did this trilogy do? It gave us a romance that was Twilight before there was Twilight. It gave us a bunch of mindless action sequences that didn't really do anything but generate pretty images, but didn't really have the same tension or drama that other scenes in the original trilogy did. It made the lightsaber less cool. I mean, the lightsaber, from its colors and its sound effect and everything, was really one of the all-time great movie weapons. And then you watch the prequels and you get sick of seeing the lightsabers because everybody fucking has one. Granted, I know this is the time of the Jedi, and the Jedi are, at their peak, but, the lightsaber was way cooler when only 2 or 3 people had them. But yeah, like I said, the acting's not very good either. They didn't focus as much on the Obi-Wan Anakin relationship as they should have. I felt like that should have been the main core of the trilogy, and it really wasn't. They barely talk to each other in episode 1. They're separated from each other for most of episode 2, and then in episode 3 the relationship falls apart, but that was without getting a sense of what the relationship was all about. So yeah, it was unfortunate. Revenge of the Sith does have its moments. I think it seems like the Order 66 scene and other stuff like that. So, again, Sith had its moments, but overall, a Star Wars prequel is still a Star Wars prequel, no matter how nicely you dress it up. But, one thing I really didn't like about the prequels were the use of midichlorians. And the reason I don't like midichlorians is because it provides a biological explanation for why certain people are adept at using the Force. And to me, in my understanding of the Force from watching the original films, to me the Force was beyond the physical. There was no physical explanation for the Force. It was about spirit and knowledge and belief and faith and all these other things. So much so that I felt like anybody could be a Force user in the Star Wars Star Wars universe if they had the knowledge, the patience, the character, and all the other things. Han Solo could have been a Jedi if he had any of the character traits necessary and the willingness to learn and believe in the Force. I felt like, and the training to go along with it, I felt like he could have been a Jedi, but he just wasn't the right personality for it or whatever. But now with midichlorians, you just get this, yeah, okay, that's, it's, basically white blood cells that the Force speaks to, and that's why certain people are adept at using the Force, and I just really didn't like that, and it really carried over into the whole Yoda has a lightsaber thing, and the Emperor has a lightsaber thing, which really also kind of bugged me, because, again, this plays into what my understanding of the Force originally was. To me, the Force, like I said, it was something that was beyond the physical. It was something that, was more spiritual and more spiritual in nature. So, having guys like Yoda and a frail old man like the Emperor being like the 2 most powerful Force users in the original trilogy, it made sense to me in a way because I felt like the Force was so spiritual and so beyond the physical that the stronger and closer you were to the Force, maybe the less physically strong you were. So Yoda's like this shriveled up little green guy, and the Emperor's this shriveled up old man. And by the way, that was another thing in Return of the Jedi, or in Revenge of the Sith, I'm sorry. Why did you have to go to the trouble of explaining why the Emperor was deformed? Because I never assumed he was deformed. I just thought he was really, really old. But whatever. In any case, so yeah, giving Yoda and the Emperor lightsabers kind of like, A, it looks silly, and B, it kind of went against how I originally viewed those characters and what I thought of them and what I thought the Force was all about. So that midichlorians just really, really bugged me about the prequels. And on top of all the other things, like explaining where Boba Fett came from, I never needed to see that. Explaining where the Death Star came from, and just, all these little, tee-hee, look what we did type of things sprinkled in. It just wasn't... The prequels were just not a very good viewing experience for Star Wars fans, and it's easy to understand why. Now, the funny thing is, even though I have spent all this time bashing the prequels, there is actually some really good prequel-related material out there. Starting with this, some of the books. You have Labyrinth of Evil, which I think is one of the better Star Wars books that I've ever read, and the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, which is actually better than the movie itself, which is kind of sad. But you've got other things here. There is the Bounty Hunter video game, which is a nice story, makes Jango Fett a more interesting character, and just a good game all around. There's a lot of good Star Wars games. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as I move on. But you also have the animated shows. I have Seasons 1 and 2 of the 2D animated Clone Wars show, which was very well animated and made for a lot of nice little great segments and clips and moments and little animated shorts, and they're all very good, except for the fact that Anakin is still a whiny bitch in Season 1, which he's insufferable, but he gets better in other animated incarnations of Clone Wars. And actually, speaking of that, that leads me to the 3D version of Clone Wars, which I think is very, very good and often gets overlooked because I think people just wrote it off as, oh, it's prequel Star Wars, so just fuck it. And I think it's quite good. The movie is dog shit. Like, the movie is awful, but the show itself actually had a lot of really good story arcs, I felt, and did a lot of really interesting things, created some great characters like Ahsoka Tano, who I thought I was going to hate, but I was like, oh my god, they're giving Anakin a little Padawan sidekick, that's going to be horrible. But she actually turned out to be one of the better Star Wars characters since the original films, and a great character. Cad Bane is like the bounty hunter we all thought Boba Fett could be. He's great. Asajj Ventress, very dark and menacing character, and develops into something special. They brought Darth Maul back, and even though the explanation for how Darth Maul comes back is really fanficky, the execution of the character is a lot more interesting in the show than it ever was in Episode 1. Because in Episode 1, he's just a guy that looks cool. But in the show, he's actually got a motivation and a personality and a character. And it makes him a lot more interesting to watch. And they did a lot of great stuff in that show. And a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people overlook it. But I think the show is actually quite good and did more things right than not. And I think it's definitely worth a look, and it actually carries over into Star Wars Rebels really well. One of the major characters, I won't spoil it in case those who, for those of you who haven't seen it, reappears in Rebels, and it made that show infinitely better and really raised the stakes of that show. And the show on its own is actually pretty good too. So, there's a lot of good prequel-related Star Wars material out there. It's just the movies that are bad. I'm not sure how that worked, but it's kind of a shame, but it is what it is. It makes you wonder if Lucas had gotten somebody to take a look at those original scripts, or the scripts for 1, 2, and 3, and maybe gotten somebody else to direct, and maybe gotten a few more people in his inner circle to help him out with things, maybe the prequel films could have turned out really well. But since I've already kind of touched up on it a little bit, the expanded universe... really, like I said, the original films were so big, and the world they created was so massive that it was only natural that it would splinter off and become a much larger expanded universe, which Disney has now rendered, not gotten rid of it, but they split it off into a separate timeline, so the events of the expanded universe are not going to have an impact on the films going forward, which I kind of like because... I feel like the filmmakers should have kind of a free range to do whatever they want, because trying to match up with everything in the expanded universe is really a tough that's a tall order, but it would have been great if they had successfully done it, but like I said, it would have been extremely difficult to do. So I can understand why they would want to ignore the expanded universe for the movies. And I can kind of look at it, it's like, oh, the new films that's its own thing, split off into one timeline, and the expanded universe is its own thing. So it didn't really eliminate the expanded universe in my eyes. But let's look into some of this. Well, this isn't really expanded universe stuff, but these are some of the video games I have. These are the Super Nintendo Star Wars games, the Super Star Wars games, which I spent a lot of hours playing in my youth and are hard as balls. They are so hard. I've never beaten Return of the Jedi. The other two I have beaten, but that one, no, just no. What other ones? I thought I had some. And I already pointed out Bounty Hunter, and here's Rebel Strike, the Rogue Squadron game for GameCube. I have the N64 one, the first Rogue Squadron game. I'm not sure where it is. But I've also played Knights of the Old Republic. I've also played the original Battlefront. I don't own them. I played them with friends. But, very good game. Star Wars has been well represented in the world of video games because it's a natural thing to work into video games. It's starships and it's lightsabers and gunplay and all sorts of other things. So it really opens the door wide open for great video games, I think. And actually, one other video game, and I want to work in some more expanded universe material here, Shadows of the Empire, which was one of the most unique parts of Star Wars history. It was this big media campaign that came out in the mid-90s. You got a book, there was a comic series, there was this video game, there was an action figure toy line, all sorts of things tied into Shadows of the Empire. It felt like we got everything except a movie. It was really strange. I thought for sure they were going to make an animated movie or something based off of Shadows of the Empire, but they did everything but. They even released a soundtrack for the book, and I think the music was then incorporated into the video game, but I was just kind of blown away. It's like, man, we literally got everything but a movie, and basically it details events that take place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and focuses on several new characters like Dash Rendar, who's basically a stand-in for Han Solo, and the villainous Prince Shizor and his organization, the Black Sun, and how they tie into the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire and their struggles, and the search for Han Solo, and Boba Fett plays a big role. It was one of the first Star Wars stories I remember seeing where Boba Fett played a big role. Yeah, really good. It was really, really good. And I remember that being a really big deal there for a while. So it was really, it's nice that I have the book. And that's probably my favorite part of the Shadows of the Empire, the whole big campaign that they did. But, I have various other things too. I have these very basic kind of coffee table books, like the Illustrated Star Wars Universe, which has all these great, pictures and all these other pretty stuff. And yeah, all that nice. And again, Star Wars is such a massive universe that it, oh, look, Dagobah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's such a massive universe that it really opens the door for pretty illustrations like that one. The Essential Weapons and Technology book, which has all these great, pictures of, I think I've had this one since I was, in 5th grade. That one, The Essential Guide to the Characters, which actually it has all the classic characters, but it also breaks off into the expanded universe as well and has some of those major characters too. So it's not just restricted to the original movies. These are definitely these are some great coffee table type of things, like the Visual Dictionary, and I believe this is the Ultimate Guide to Vehicles and Starcraft, which again, a lot of great, mostly just a simple little thing for pictures, but I like having those books all the same. And these things I actually just picked up a couple years ago because I thought, again, more the coffee table type of thing. I really thought these were neat. The Bounty Hunter Code, The Path of the Jedi, and the Book of the Sith, and all three books kind of detail the lifestyles and the history of all those three lives, the Jedi, the Bounty Hunter, and the Sith. And very interestingly, they have little footnotes and comments from certain characters who gain possession of the book, written in the margins, which I thought made it even more fun to read, because you would be reading like the Code of the Jedi and have little comments from Palpatine saying like, "Ha, I killed you all," and all that stuff. It really kind of makes those books a lot more colorful than they may seem. They may seem like just basically like, oh, the Jedi are this, and that, but you have those character commentaries thrown in there, and that makes it a lot more fun to read. So I thought it was a neat little thing that I picked up. And other expanded universe material, mostly the books. I mean, I think when I think of the expanded universe for Star Wars, I think of the books, and those are the things that really stand out to me. Probably the most notable is the Thrawn trilogy, and actually, when I heard that Disney was doing episodes 7, 8, and 9, the first idea that popped in my head was like, are they going to do the Thrawn trilogy? That would be pretty cool. But are the actors too old to do the Thrawn trilogy and all sorts of other things? But it turns out that's not what they're doing. But that was really the thing that kind of jump-started my interest in the expanded universe. I also have, what is this? Children of the Jedi, Darksaber, Planet of Twilight. Now, before anybody asks, I actually do not have the Young Jedi series anymore. Those books, I lost those years ago, and I actually never finished reading them because there was a major character death in one of the books that really upset me. And after I read that, I was like, I can't finish reading this. It's too depressing. Now I've kind of got the itch to go back and hunt down all the books. And there were 14 of the Young Jedi books. And yeah, that was probably the series that most people I know read. It focused on the Skywalker, not the Solo twins, I should say, the children of Han and Leia who went on to become powerful Force users. And really made for a nice series of books. I wish I could track them all down and actually finish reading them. That'd be really cool. But that was a series that a lot of people got sucked into that one. And there were so many other great, there's comics. Marvel Comics has their own comic book series going with Star Wars. They have a Star Wars series, a Vader series, a Princess Leia series, and I'm probably going to start collecting those once they start getting released in trade paperback. But the expanded universe has created its own popular characters. I already talked about all the ones that were introduced in Clone Wars, but characters like Aurra Sing became a big deal. Mara Jade became a huge character in Star Wars mythos. All introduced in these great stories, and really, it really speaks to the dedication of the fans, for one thing, because it's really, these stories are written by fans. That's the other thing. They're clearly written by people who wanted to see the story continued and wanted to expand on certain elements of the story and just keep the universe growing and keep it larger and keep it getting bigger and better going forward. And and really, that was always the most amazing part of the expanded universe to me. Is it made Star Wars feel limitless. Like, the possibilities were endless. You could just keep the story going on forever and just do whatever you want with it. And they did all sorts of crazy things with the expanded universe and various other materials out there. But and it's and like I said, even though Disney is not incorporating it into their movies, it'll always be a part of Star Wars to me. And as long as these books exist, I'm actually now I've kind of got the itch to reread the Thrawn trilogy again too. So I'm gonna be hitting up eBay and tracking down the Young Jedi series, and I'm gonna be rereading the Thrawn trilogy while I'm doing that. So I'm gonna be keeping myself busy with the Star Wars books. But in any case, the expanded universe is a huge part of Star Wars, and if there's any material that you're interested in looking at and you want to learn more about the expanded universe, I highly recommend the ones that I have. Definitely, I highly recommend, and there's definitely a lot more. I only barely scraped the surface of the expanded universe material that's out there. Just go out there and find it for yourselves, because it's most of it is very, very interesting. Now, one of the best parts about being a Star Wars fan are all the parodies that get thrown towards the saga. I don't know what it is about Star Wars, but I guess it's just so unique to itself that it's just ripe for parody. And, when you can do a really good Star Wars parody, it really pays off. And my two favorites are actually the Mel Brooks classic Spaceballs, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time. So funny. Casting Rick Moranis as Dark Helmet, which is the Darth Vader parody, that's just perfect, just so perfect, and so funny, and so quotable, and so memorable. And it lampoons other science fiction films as well, which makes it even better. And the Robot Chicken parodies, I have the first 2 episodes on DVD, and those are brilliant because the Robot Chicken ones were clearly made by fans, clearly made by people who have watched these movies probably more than I have, and just fully understand the trilogy and knew how to make fun of it. I mean, namely, I think of Emperor Palpatine's collect call, or the collect call that he got from Darth Vader right after the Death Star blew up. I mean, it's just one of those things you think about. It's like, yeah, what was that conversation like where Darth Vader had to tell the Emperor that the Death Star blew up? I mean, how did that conversation go? And they made a really funny scene out of it. It's probably my favorite Star Wars parody of all time. So, yeah, Robot Chicken and Spaceballs, those are easily my 2 favorite Star Wars parodies. But, you throw a rock, you'll find a Star Wars parody somewhere because there's just so many of them. With varying degrees of success, but most of them are pretty funny, I'd say. And with that, I think let's close this out by talking about The Force Awakens, Star Wars Episode 7, which is coming out just a few short days, just a few short hours, actually, depending on how you want to look at it. But, yeah, it really is amazing to think about that we're finally getting like a sequel Star Wars film to the original trilogy, something that I don't think anybody thought would ever happen. But we're here now. And all we just got to do is wait and see how the film turns out. I'm trying not to get my expectations up too high. I'm not expecting it to, be the greatest thing ever made or anything like that, because I remember what the hype was like for Phantom Menace and the disappointment that a lot of people experienced. Some people were so hyped up for Phantom Menace that they were in denial that the film was bad. They were just kind of like, no, there's no such thing as a bad Star Wars movie. What are you talking about? That's crazy. You're crazy. Shut up. I'm trying to keep my expectations reasonable here. I'm not expecting the best movie ever made, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect J.J. Abrams, who, it's funny, when I saw the first Star Trek movie, I was like, that's a really good space action adventure movie, but it's not really a Star Trek movie. This guy would probably be better suited for Star Wars, and here we are, he's making a Star Wars movie. So, but in any case, I'm not asking him to move mountains here. All he has to do is make a better movie than episodes 1, 2, and 3, and we'll be set. That's all I want. It's like, that's really all I want from this film. Can you give me that magic Star Wars feeling again in a movie that is at least solid, at least entertaining, and doesn't piss me off? Can you do that? I don't think that's too hard. I don't think I'm asking too much of him. But again, we'll find out come movie time. I'm actually going to see it opening night. Got my tickets. It's the 10:30 show, so we'll see. We shall see how it all goes. So far, it looks promising. The music's definitely there. Of course, Episode 1 also had the music, and the music in the prequels is really good. Again, you can thank John Williams for that. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to expect out of the story because they've kept so many things under wraps, and I've deliberately gone out of my way to avoid any and all spoilers. But it's I know they just had their premiere last night in Hollywood, and the response to it coming out of it was generally positive, which is good to hear. But again, I'm trying to avoid as much as possible because I don't want to have anything in the movie spoiled for me. But what do I think will happen? I don't want to speculate too much, but, a lot of the fan theories out there seem reasonable, that Kylo Ren is probably the son of either Luke Skywalker or of Han and Leia, and he was like a rogue Jedi in training that flipped out and joined up with the last remnants of the Galactic Empire, and all sorts of things like that. Rey is probably the daughter of maybe Luke Skywalker, maybe Mara Jade. Maybe that's a way they could work her into it. I'm just kidding. But, that's a possibility. Maybe... I've even heard a friend of mine speculated that Finn might be the son of Han Solo and Sana Solo, who was a character introduced in the Marvel comics. Sorry if I spoiled that for anybody, but it was just one of those ideas that was rattling around. Which I guess that could be possible too. I don't know. I don't know how these characters are going to turn out. I'm not even entirely sure what the story's going to be. My one fear with this film, my one concern right off the bat, and I derived this largely from the poster, is that it looks like we're getting another Death Star. To which I say, it's like, really? We gotta do... How many fucking Death Stars are they gonna build in this fucking series? I mean, we've already had 2. And even with Return of the Jedi, I was like, yeah, we've kind of already been here, but... What, a third one? Seriously? But, so my general concern is that I'm fearful that this movie is going to be a rehash of A New Hope, just with new characters, which wouldn't be the worst thing ever, but it wouldn't allow this film to kind of stand on its own. It would be more of a nostalgia fest than anything else. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. I think a rehash of Episode 4 would still be better than Episodes 1, 2, and 3. So I would take it. But yeah, all I want is to feel that Star Wars magic again and to see if they can recapture that. And, the fact that something like BB-8 is a practical effect, I think is great. It does look like it has that organic kind of lived-in look that Star Wars is supposed to have, which, again, is great the way it should be. But, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm excited, but I'm also a little nervous, too, because I don't know exactly what we're going to get. But, I'm sure I will have plenty to talk about when I do my review of the film coming later this week, in addition to reviews of all the other wrestling shows that are happening this week. But before I go, one last piece of Star Wars merchandise that I think is pretty cool. This is a little Darth Vader. I never took it out of the box. It's basically him on his throne. I don't know if you can actually see that, but his helmet pops up and down, and it's just Darth Vader on his throne. It just makes a nice little piece to go on the shelf. And one last piece of merchandise before I go, but again, thank you all for listening, and if you are a big Star Wars fan, I hope you appreciated my look into the impact that Star Wars has had on my life and what I've thought of all the material that I've read. And I really, like I said, I only scratched the surface of what Star Wars is all about. And with the new films coming out, namely Episode 7, we've got Rogue One coming out next year. We've got 8 and 9 down the pike. There's a young Han Solo movie coming out. And there will always be books and comics and video games and all sorts of other things. It's just the universe of Star Wars is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there will always be great Star Wars material out there. And, of course, there will always be the original trilogy, which to me is one of the greatest films I've ever made. So, yeah, that is really all I have to say at this point. So, hope you all enjoy The Force Awakens. I'll be here to talk about it later in the week. But until then, may the Force be with you.